Hi, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Thank you to Lindsay for inviting me to offer maybe some resources or just maybe opportunity during your very busy day to release some tension, to calm that central nervous system, and maybe to refill your cup, to re energize and prepare yourself for the rest of your day. I am Kelly Gant. I have been teaching yoga and Pilates for almost 18 years. I mostly specialize now in teaching trauma informed yoga, and I work with active duty and veterans. And of course, as you guys know, most of us are walking through the world encountering people who are working with trauma. So much of my teaching comes from that space. You're going to hear a lot of choices, you're going to hear a lot of invitation to try some things. Take yourself on up on what makes sense for you today. And today is today, right? And in this moment. So if something doesn't feel right, if something is causing you discomfort, you can tap out of that. You may get some choices of other things to try as well. So we're trying our best to listen to our body, to have compassion for ourselves, right? You all are compassionate individuals and giving a lot of that compassion away. Remind yourself to gather some of that for yourself. So you'll see me sitting here in a dining room table. I actually don't have an office chair that might match yours. I've got one of those ergonomic ones. So I'm going to be moving around here in a chair, but I'm going to invite you to really get comfortable in your chair. And so what does that mean? For most of us, it's probably not sitting. So we're upright without some support behind our back. So maybe leaning your back into the chair. If you happen to have arm rests that make the shoulders feel like they're relaxing, feel free to rest on the armrest. Maybe it feels better for you and shoulders to relax and have hands in your lap. So, where we're headed today is we're going to work through some releasing of tension. And it's working on the assumption that you are seated at your desk or seated and working and needing some relief through this whole body structure. So, we're going to work in a seated position. Then we're going to do some calming. And then we'll do a little bit of that re-energizing. The calming will be more of a guided meditation. Re-energizing, we're going to use breath to help us refill some of our cup. So Lindsay and I had a chance to chat, and we are guessing that you are working, who amongst us isn't, right, with a lot of shoulder tension and perhaps some low back tension. So what this sequence is going to do is walk you through releasing some of that. And again, I want to invite you to listen to your body, to notice what's happening, to change anything that makes sense to you to change up. Now, this first one might seem a bit strange. I'm going to take off my glasses. If you have glasses, please go ahead and remove your glasses. We're going to release the head with a bit of a head massage, and stick with me here. We have lots of energy meridians, so I'm going to throw that out there in Chinese medicine, marma points in yoga and Chinese medicine that can really help release tension flowing down through the body. If nothing else, it just kind of feels good to give yourself a little bit of a head, ear, and face massage. So the first thing we're going to do is you're going to smack your hands together pretty vigorously. I'm trying not to so I don't go through that microphone. But give it a good couple of smacks. We're going to energize and heat up. And of course, we know that deep pressure on palms can help inspire a little bit of a relaxation response. And then just start to work those hands together. We want to build a little bit of heat. And the first thing we're going to do is place those palms over our eyes. Now, because I teach veterans and military, I don't tend to get too woo-woo, but I do like to share what may be happening energetically, what may be happening physically for you. In yoga, we have two chakras, energy centers in our palms. And we know this because often when we're trying to, help soothe someone, our first inclination is to place our hand on someone to share our energy. And right now, placing your palms over your eyes, we're creating a little bit of darkness. We might have a little bit of energy running through those palms that relaxes this whole area, the space of the brow and the top of the cheekbone. From here, we're going to take our hands away, and we're almost like we're trying to find our middle part in our hair. So we're going to start at the front hairline, and it's just pulling apart from the top Now we have two energy meridians, or I should say the same energy meridian running along the top of the head on two sides here, and they connect right at the brow. And we're moving around here a little bit. It is your urinary bladder meridian, which is the only meridian that dips into the brain. So it can be a bit of a little recharge just to kind of wash your hair is what I end up telling people. We're going to move down a little bit towards the ears. We've got several Chinese medicine energy meridians running through the head. We're going to hit a lot of those today. Go down to your temples, if you will, and we're circling in a direction that makes sense. So there's nothing specific here, no specific way to circle, but one way might feel more appropriate than the other, and that's really what we're exploring. We're going to travel, and I'm using my index finger, middle finger down to right at the hinge of your jaw. And I'm just giving it a good little circle here. So these circles, releasing tension, releasing muscle. You guys often talk for a living, and when you're talking, of course, we're working that whole area of the jaw and the neck. We're trying our best here to give ourselves just a little bit of release through the hinge of that jaw, the temple, which will translate down the neck. And then we're going to use what I call little pincher fingers, so our crab claws. I'm going to take and start pinching my way down my jaw. So I have my thumb underneath my jaw, and I have my index finger and middle finger running through what you can see of my jaw, so what would be more at the top. And I'm going to start that route again, starting right there at the base, right where it would make that corner where we think of a cut jaw here, and we're just squeezing to go underneath. Pause here at your chin, if you will. And if it's okay for you to place thumbs underneath, you're going to push into thumbs, and we're going to try to create a little resistance as we open our jaw 3 times. So we're going to open it, and release. And again, I'm offering resistance, trying to keep my jaw from opening. We're going to open it and release one more time. We're going to open it and release. I'm going to take my fingers. I'm going to run them now from that point right there where I found just below my temple. Make the little corner to run all the way to my chin. One more time. We're going to run it down. This is a great jaw release for anybody working with any TMJ or if you get nice tension headaches. The next thing we're going to do is go through our brows here. So I'm taking my thumb and index finger, and I'm just pinching my brows. I'm going to work my way all the way to the outside. I'm going to do it a couple of times. If there's a tender spot, you might stay on it. I know that seems counterintuitive. And then we're just going to try to straighten our eyebrows is what it'll feel like. We're taking it from the center on out, and then just take 2 fingers and roll a circle right there between your brows. You can even tap there if that feels more appropriate. Taking your hands, we're going to wash underneath our eyes. So we're moving through sinuses here. We go from the internal corner of our eye out to the temples, 2 or 3 of these. And this is going to feel weird. We're going to take our fingers and stick them up underneath our cheekbones. And we just pause there, a little pressure, and let that wash down as if you were going to go all the way down to the chin, ending at the point of the chin. I'm going to ask you to look to your right. And once you're looking to your right, you're going to take your hands, and we're going to run the sternocleidomastoid, so that big fun muscle that goes from the back of the ear to your collarbone. And we're just going to let it run down, one hand after the other. We're hopefully lengthening a little bit of this muscle. It's a big supporter of your head. So if you're spending a lot of time on that computer, if you have to be on the phone a lot, or a lot of times people who listen for a living have a head tilt, and you tend to tilt to one side. So this can help alleviate some of that tension. We're going to switch sides now. So we're going to look to the left and just take the hands again, running from the ear or the back of the ear down to the notch of the collarbone, sternocleidomastoid. Now, we're also going to get a little bit of scalenes. Scalenes are 3 tiny muscles that run along the sides of the neck, and those create a lot of havoc. They can refer pain, especially if you have trigger points, to other parts of your shoulder, to your jaw itself, even to the chest. When you're ready, we're going to pause here. We're going to take, if this is comfortable to you, your forefingers and tuck them underneath the collarbone. We're hanging this ridge here to help release some of the tension that is created with that forward head. And we kind of go underneath that collarbone, again, if that's comfortable, to finally release those two parts of the sternocleidomastoid. The last thing we're going to do here on the head is to work the ears. And we're going to pretend maybe we're in the shower. We're going to start squeezing those ears. And we're working our fingers all the way down to the earlobes themselves. And we're just kind of mushing and squishing, official word there, mush and squish. But we want to get inside that ear too. So we're going to almost like we were going to plug our ears. We're going to run it along the interior curves of those ears and even press into the ears as if you're going to pull forward. So that's hard to see here, but I have my hands in my ears like I'm blocking my ears from listening, and I'm going to pull forward on those ears. And the last thing we'll do for the ears is pinch your earlobes and draw your hands down until they're released. So we have a lot of, in acupuncture, we believe our whole ear reflects our whole body. So rubbing your ears, we have a lot of points and organs reflected in that can help release the system. All right, we're getting to those shoulders. So I'm going to ask you to take your right hand. It's going to slide behind your back. If it's uncomfortable to slide behind your back, you can leave it right there at your hip. So we're sliding that hand behind the back, and what that's going to do is help release these shoulder blade muscles that hold our shoulder blade to our back. Now, in addition to that, we're going to take and drop the head over to the left side. So my left ear to, my shoulder. I'm going to get this nice stretch, the upper trapezius of that shoulder. Now, you might play around with looking down at the shoulder and looking up at the screen. That's going to get a couple of different spaces, again, scalene, sternocleidomastoid, but in addition, releasing that shoulder blade. One more time, each direction, maybe looking up, looking down. We're going to rise back through center and just bring that hand to rest again, either on your armchair or down in your lap. We're going to switch sides. Left elbow comes behind. We're going to drop now right ear to right shoulder. And we'll look down and up if that's appropriate. Now, neck, as we know, tight area for all of us, right? Some of us are working with some neck issues or neck challenges. So we're careful here to measure with sensation. Your neck is the thing that it'll let you know right away whether or not this is a good idea or bad idea. We'll do a couple more of those. Now, this is stuff really you can do any time during the day. There's no particular time to do it. It's really when you're feeling sort of tight through those shoulders. We're going to bring left hand down, and we're going to rest here for a moment and just noticing the space from the very top of your head, the front of the face, down through the sides of the neck as it leads into the collarbones and the tops of the shoulders. We're going to do a little bit of stretching here for triceps and something called your serratus anterior. So I'm going to ask you to place your fingertips right on top of your shoulders. We're going to start large or small circles. And I usually tell my students, imagine you put a marker on your elbow. Now, we might just color the floor. We might color the walls, the ceiling, and the space behind us. These circles with fingertips here, a little more releasing, less engaging of these upper trapezius. If we were going to sort of do a circle in the air, that gets a whole lot more shoulder muscle going and maybe not as much release as we would like. Go ahead and reverse your circles. So I mentioned triceps. We can get trigger points. Trigger points are these just really tight spots in fascia, your connective tissue or your muscle, that really can create referral pain. And trigger points in your triceps create referral pain up through your upper trapezius. We're going to go ahead and pause here. Let your arms, if it's possible, hang along without anything holding on to them. So not the seat, not the arms, if possible. Now, if that's not possible, that's okay. Let them rest in your lap. And as we pause here, we're going to do a little bit of a neck circle. However, we're not going to be looking up. We're only going to be looking down. So we're going to drop our ear to one side, doesn't matter which side. We're going to roll our chin across the collarbone. We end up on the other side. And we'll continue this. So we're just noticing here for ourselves how this feels. And you're going to see, I always like to mention I'm working with stuff just like everybody else, a little bit of limited range of motion, especially here. These days, it's unpredictable in my 50s as to whether or not I'm going to wake up with stuff. I woke up with a really interesting neck last week. We're going to do one more on each side. And then when you're ready, we come back through center. We're going to take a little bit of arm movement now. So I'm going to ask you to clasp your hands. We're going to send our knuckles just straight out in front of us. Now they can be lower, especially if that feels like it's firing up a lot of shoulder. And I'm going to turn sideways just so you can see. This is called protraction, retraction. I'm going to push my knuckles as if I'm pushing towards the screen or probably towards your desk. And then I'm going to pull my shoulders back. Now, what I'm careful not to do is become the chicken that's pecking, right? We want our neck to stay put, our head to stay put. So I'm only moving knuckles. I press forward and pull back. Now, this is going to get stuff between the shoulder blades and underneath the shoulder blades. We're going to continue to push and pull. What happens when we have a tight neck, when we have a forward head? And we typically have a forward head because of technology, is it starts to translate down the chain. We get that mid-thoracic, mid-back tightness. We're going to do a couple more of these. And so right now we're going to focus on releasing that mid-thoracic area. When you're ready, let your hands come on down again. If it feels good to shrug shoulders or maybe give them a little wiggle, you might give them a little wiggle. Next place we're headed is what I call letter X arms. This is actually called cow's face arms in yoga, but over instructing for several years, this seems to be the way folks can get it. We're going to take your right elbow and we're going to cross it on top of your left elbow. So we make the letter X. We're going to bend our elbows to make the letter V. And this is where we start to decide. Sometimes we've got anatomy that's in the way. Sometimes we're working with shoulder impingement that's in the way. So we might stay in our letter V. We might be able to go into an I or even bring the palms towards each other to go into an interlaced I. When you're ready, we're going to keep those elbows together, whether they're V's or I's, to inhale, press up towards the ceiling. And we'll exhale, let them melt down. We're going to do this 4 times. Back to that shoulder release. Inhale, pressing up. Exhale, down. Inhale up. We feel that rib cage expand. Hopefully we feel some stretch through the outsides of those shoulders, maybe even between the shoulder blades. One more time. Inhale up. Exhale down. Now I'm going to ask you to get pretty flingy, so watch stuff on your desk or your chairs. We're going to do some scissor flings. So one elbow on top and then the other. Just a nice little loosening here. And then we're going to switch sides. So this time it's your left elbow that comes on top. We make our letter X, our letter V, I, or interlaced. It's all about the alphabet, right? We're going to inhale, press up, and exhale. And again, if V is the space, we keep those elbows together to press up and lower back down 2 more times. Inhale as we press up. Exhale as we lower down 1 more time. Inhale up. Exhale, lower down. We're going to do our scissor flings again. Just watch your knuckles. It can be a knuckle knocker or an elbow knocker if you've got arms on your chairs. We're going to sneak back if you are not all the way back. And we're going to take your right arm and bring it behind the chair. Now, if you don't happen to be in a chair that allows you to do that, if you have a really high back chair, or if you, like me, have an ergonomic chair with no back, you can slide your hand behind your back again. So that's going to give you an element of release. As we're reaching behind, what I'm trying to do is very intentionally roll my shoulder forward. So it's almost like I'm pushing my shoulder into the wall across from me, and I'm getting this nice pectoral stretch, and it's an upper pec stretch and a pec major, pec minor stretch too. So pectorals releasing here. If the front is tight, and I guarantee you your front is tight, so is the back. Our back is always trying to pull us back into what we call our plumb line, where our shoulders are right above our hips, hips right above knees, knees right above ankle bones. If that back is trying to keep pulling you into your palm line because this area is tight, that's how the back side of the body gets tight as well. We're going to switch sides. So we go ahead and slide behind, either hand behind the back, or it goes behind your chair if it's available, the back of the chair, and we're rolling that shoulder forward. Sensations here usually present kind of right if in the crease, if we were going to cross the arm across the body. If it's really tight, it might feel like it's all the way towards your breastbone. So we're releasing the front to release the back. Now, I like doing one at a time. You certainly can do both. I feel like you get a little bit more range of motion in order to release a little bit deeper if you do one at a time. But if you're short on time, both hands can go behind. You can roll those shoulders forward. We're going to release, and one more time, let those arms hang down by your side. You might give the head a little shake, no, little nod, yes. We're going to continue to release the torso. We're going to do a side stretch, and we have options with the hand. So we're actually going to be reaching over to your right side. So your left arm might come behind the back. It might reach out into a T. It might reach all the way to the ceiling. And all we're doing here is letting ourselves lean over. Now, this is where arms can come in handy. You can either hook your hand underneath or rest it on top. But we're getting a lateral stretch. A lateral stretch, super underestimated for the effect it can have not only on your shoulders, but also your low back. Much of our tightness, the stickiness in the rib cage area, creates stuff that travels up and down the chain. So we're trying to release some of this rib cage area. We're going to rise back through center, and we're going to switch sides. So this time we're going to lean over to the left, and again, hand can come behind. That is the most released space for that shoulder. It can reach out into a T or up. If you're working with shoulder stuff, always a better idea to keep the hand a little bit lower, less engaged, less difficult for the shoulder neck area. The opposite hand, again, resting if it makes sense. You're going to see me let mine just dangle and reach down. 2 more breaths here. And we're about to go sailing. We're going to rise back up, hands resting comfortably in your lap. So I'm going to ask you here to keep your head steady and to imagine that you're shifting from side to side, and then do shifts, but maybe imagine that you're kind of bumping each arm on your chair or where your arm on the chair would be. So we're just rocking through this torso. Head stays steady, hips fairly steady, to get unstuck through this diaphragmatic area, through this bottom rib cage area. You can hear my back on my chair making squeaky sounds. Maybe yours is too. We're going to pause here. We're getting ready to twist. Now, I'm going to invite you to come a little bit more forward. So you are on the edge of your seat. As long as that's safe, make sure we're not going to tip forward. We're going to do a gentle twist. And by a gentle twist, we're just twisting in a way that our torso allows. We're going to be twisting to the right, and it can be helpful to use your left hand on your thigh. If the neck allows, we're going to look over the right shoulder. We start with a gentle twist. We haven't done a full yoga class, so we're not going into those deep twists where we really feel like we're getting in there. This is a reminder to our body in this gentle twist that our abdominals can stretch, that our back extensors that hold us upright can stretch, and that it might even help our body remember to remain more released than tight. We're going to come back through center. We're just going to switch sides. So gentle twist to the left. Now, if you did a series of these, maybe you do 3 or 4 on each side, you might then start to go deeper and deeper. So if a twist feels good and it's feeling good to you in that day, you might take some time, go to both sides. Today, because of time, we're going to just do 1 on each side, but you can certainly add more twists in. And holding a little bit longer invites those muscles to release. We do have a yin practice in yoga that's holding poses up to 5 minutes. That's always good stuff for chronic pain. And for those of us, if you're like me, aging and getting less collagen in any of our tissues, it's a nice one to be able to release. We're going to come back through center. We're going to take our feet pretty wide. So we're going to do a little bit of inner thigh stretching, but we're going to add in this shoulder rotation that we did when we had our hand behind the chair. So the idea is I've kind of got my hands right here on my thighs. I've got my knees a little bit wider. I might feel an inner thigh stretch. I'm going to take my right shoulder as if I could touch it to my left knee. It's not going to happen, or maybe you could. I'm not going to make that happen. We're going to keep switching sides, left shoulder to right knee. And this rotation forward again, getting a little bit of stretch through the torso, getting some inner thigh stretch. If you're not feeling a lot of inner thigh stretch, you can go wider with the feet. And of course, if you're feeling it way too intensely, walk your feet closer together. If your chair is safe, you can, meaning you're not going to tip forward or go side to side, you can also stretch your legs long. That might feel good too. We're going to continue this rotation. You might get deeper. So we've got shoulder release, we've got inner thigh release, and we have this low back release in a particular muscle called your QL, your quadratus lumborum. It's a big stabilizer of your lumbar vertebrae, your 5 low vertebrae in your spine. And it's a fussy muscle. That often gets a lot of trigger points based on not using it, a seated position over a long period of time. Those trigger points can mimic all kinds of things like sciatica, like your SI joint is irritated. So stretching that QL in that low back is an important space to be in. All right, we're going to come back through center. We're going to stretch our hamstrings. Old school hamstring stretch. We are again on the edge of our seats. Careful here. If you happen to have a desk to hold on to, actually, it's probably going to be a better idea for you. We're going to keep a nice long spine. So I'm not rounding here if I can help it. Long, tall spine, we hinge right at the crease of our thighs to come forward. So we might be holding on. For those of us who can't hold on, we might place hands on thighs. A few of you might get with that straight back down to shins. Please be careful not to place hands on knees. That puts a lot of backward pressure on your knee joints. We want those ligaments to last a long time. Now, if it makes sense and you've got the room, a full forward fold. So now we incorporate not just hamstring, but backside body. We're getting some of that low back, mid back. Probably the thing that's most stubborn in the body over my years of teaching is the back of the neck. So we may find we get release, we may find we don't. When you inhale next, we're going to walk our way back up. We're going to stretch the front of the thighs. So I'm going to turn to the right. So I'm still on the edge of my seat. And I'm going to take my left leg and let my knee just drop straight down. So it's perpendicular to the floor. And from here, I do a little tailbone tuck. So imagine a little puppy that got in trouble and has to tuck their tail. That's where we're headed here. Tailbone tuck that stretches this front crease of the thigh. We might even feel it travel down the quads. So I mentioned when you're tight in the front of the chest, your back is tight. When you're tight through the quads and something else called your psoas, you're tight in your low back. So if you experience a lot of low back tightness, stretching these front thighs becomes really important. We're going to do one more breath here. And this is a quick and easy way to do it in your seat. We're going to switch sides now. We're going to turn to the left. My right thigh straight down, knee aiming towards the floor, perpendicular to the floor. Now you see my toes tucked. You might be in your shoes. If you're in your shoes, it's okay to rest that top foot down. It's really kind of what feels good to you here. I said you might be in your shoes. As a yoga instructor, I'm never in shoes. Surely you're in your shoes at your desk. Maybe not. We'll do 3 more breaths here. And then we're going to come back through center. We're going to do this final stretch of the outside of the thigh, and it is like our old school number 4. If you ever ran track, we're going to take your right ankle and cross it over the top of the left. Now, for any gentleman in the crowd, more than likely, because of your hip structure, your knee is going to be pretty high up. If that's the case, you're unlikely to lean forward. That just creates a lot of not fun stuff. So I would hang out here if your knee is a little bit higher than your hip, and take a little twist to your right. We're going to increase the stretch without getting into what we call hard compression, where two bones are meeting each other and squeezing the tissue in between. So that's an option. High knee, twist to the right. For those of us who have a hip structure that maybe allows that knee to settle a little bit lower than the hip, we're going to fold forward, and we are rounding this time instead of keeping that straight back. So this is going to stretch IT band. We might feel it in the glute. It's going to stretch our piriformis as well. All things that help stabilize, help that leg move, help us externally rotate, and all things that get really tight no matter what you're doing. If you're exercising hours a day, if you are seated hours a day, these are just areas that are always tight for us. So we're going to invite them to release. Now, I mentioned a little bit earlier, yin yoga. This would be a great space to hold 2 to 3 minutes. Yin yoga, we hold yoga poses for up to 5 minutes to address connective tissue. This particular space, what we're stretching here, is often really the culprit of a lot of our low back tightness. So holding a little bit longer might get a little bit deeper into connective tissue. We're not doing that today. We're going to come on out. If you're twisted, come on and face us. We're going to switch sides. Adjusting here, your sides don't match certainly in that hip socket. They're probably not going to match in this pose. So if it's a high knee, we might rotate to look over to the left. If it's a little bit lower, we might round and fold forward. Now I'm staying up a little bit higher just so I can talk to the screen, and also so my microphone doesn't get too muffled, but you might be able to fully fold forward all the way over that leg. So you're just, again, judging with sensation. How does it feel? It might even take a moment here to notice how one side feels compared to the other. Sometimes we know our usual culprits, as I call it, or our best friends. That best friend shows up no matter what. It's usually in the form of chronic pain. You may know the differences between hips, but you might be surprised. Maybe this side feels tighter than the other side, and that feels unexpected. We're going to come back up, and we're going to get ready to move into this space of calm. So we did our release. Now we're headed towards calming the central nervous system. And we're going to combine a couple of things. We're going to be folding forward, and really folding forward in the sense that my chest, my rib cage, if possible, are hanging out on my thighs. Now, that's not possible for all of us, and it's actually contraindicated for anybody with eye pressure issues, glaucoma, or history of stroke. If those or any of those apply to you, we're going to bring the forearms to rest and dip the head. So we get a bit of rounding of the back without any eye pressure or extra pressure in the head. And that includes TBI too. So I always like to mention that, since I teach trauma-informed yoga. I have several traumatic brain injury military folks. So if it feels dizzy making or too much pressure, this forward fold here, allow yourself to be on forearms. So this is a modified child's pose. It's a seated child's pose. And child's pose is considered to be very restorative in yoga. And restoration in yoga really refers to feeling calmer, more centered, more grounded, and more able to tackle the rest of your day. We're taking longer to breathe here because we're adding deep pressure to the belly, which we know can create a relaxation response in the body. We're also getting some breath to expand, hopefully in the back rib cage area. We're getting ready after we do this sort of release and calming to work with the breath. We're going to be here just for 2 more breaths in our child's pose or modified child's pose. We'll rise up and come up slowly in case you do feel a little bit dizzy. I'm going to ask you then to sneak back into your seat so your back is fully supported and feet are on the floor. So if you're a person who likes to sit crisscross, or if you like to cross the legs, we'd like both soles of the feet on the floor for this. Arms resting comfortably And that is up to you. You'll see me here. I typically rest my hands in more of a meditation mudra. You might rest your hands on your arms or arm rests. Maybe it feels good to have your hands slide behind your back. That could be a space too that feels releasing to you. If it's comfortable to you, closing the eyes. And I recognize for many of us that doesn't feel comfortable, especially if you're a visual learner or if you like to know what's going on around you. So maybe what we do is compromise there in that we lower the lids, but we keep a little bit of light coming in through the bottom slit of that lid. And we're just taking away visual information and what can be distracting in that visual information so we can tune in internally. If it's helpful to you, I'm going to ask you to take a deep inhale and hold the breath just for a beat or two and let it whoosh out the mouth. If that feels helpful, a couple more deep inhales, holding the breath. Exhale, whooshing it out. When those breaths feel complete, just inviting the body to breathe itself. There's no effort to breath, no noticing of breath. It's traveling as it chooses. As that breath calms, we're going to take a moment just to notice our seat. The strength of the spine traveling up, the length of the legs traveling down from our seat. This middle space of the body, energetically, is how we get energy to travel up and down the body. So we're noticing now this middle space, the front and the back of the pelvis, and just bringing your awareness to that area. And let your awareness travel to the soles of your feet. Noticing both soles of the feet connected to the floor. And then the length of your shin bones, the bend of your knees, traveling from the knees up through the thigh bones to the hips. And letting your awareness travel to your sacrum, the back side of the pelvis, perhaps pressed in to the back of your chair. And rising up from that pelvis is the low back, the bottom rib cage, and the space of the back of the heart, pressing into the back of your seat, and rising up from the space of the back of the heart, the length of the spine as it travels through the back of the neck. And if you'll envision the roof of your mouth, you might even place your tongue at the roof of your mouth, and letting that tongue be your guide to draw a line to the very back of your skull. And from that very back space that you just drew the line, nod your chin just slightly, creating length in the back of the neck. And pausing here just for a moment to breathe. Noticing the number of beats it takes you to breathe in, the number of beats it takes you to breathe out. There's no right or wrong answer, it's just a noticing and a way we train our brain to one-pointed focus, noticing the rhythm of the breath. When you exhale next, I'm going to ask you, if your eyes are closed, to just gently blink your eyes open and pause here for a moment just to notice how you're feeling. How might you be feeling in the physical body? Maybe even in the emotional and thinking bodies. The last part of our experience here today is refilling. And we're going to refill using the breath. In yoga, breath, or what piggybacks on breath, is called prana, our life force energy. In Chinese medicine, it's called qi. You, more than likely, are giving away your prana all day. You're talking, you're working with people, you're sharing. And that breath exiting the body is prana leaving the body. But luckily, we can draw prana back into the body. We can move it around the body. We're going to practice 2 breaths here that really are about re-energizing. And when Lindsay and I were putting this together, we discussed knowing for most of us what will calm our central nervous system are breaths you've practiced previously. These might be unfamiliar to you. Now, reasons not to practice either of these breaths. If you're feeling what I call elevated in yoga, if your SNS is activated, if you're having anxiety today, or if you're just feeling really revved up, these are going to rev you up more. What you can do instead is go back to the breathing practice we were doing, where we're counting the number of breaths it takes us to breathe in and the number of breaths it takes us to breathe out. So careful there. If you're feeling elevated today, leave these breaths out of it. Go back to your nice steady breath where you're just noticing breath and the rhythm. The first breath we're going to do, and it is kind of fun. It looks really silly. Nobody knows you're doing it. Nobody's going to see you. I'm going to take off my glasses. It's called lion's breath. And because I have a microphone on, it's not going to sound as vigorous as I would like you to think about it. Lion's breath incorporates sticking out the tongue as if you're pressing it towards your chin, crossing your eyes to look at the top of your brow, and exhaling forcefully. It's an energizing breath. It's a stress relief breath. It activates your pituitary, the master gland, that can help with hormones throughout the day. So this idea of exhaling with effort is meaning we aren't trying to draw up here. It comes from the belly. So we want our shoulders to relax. We just worked really hard to relax those. We want our shoulders to relax. It looks like this. You take a deep inhale through your nose. As you exhale, cross your eyes, stick your tongue out, exhale vigorously. Is the sound. We're going to do that 5 times. I'm going to mimic it with you. And again, nobody will know if you're doing it or not. Nobody can see you because they're crossing your eyes. So maybe if it's okay for you to play around a little bit, try it, see how it feels. All right, here we go. We're going to inhale through the nose when you're ready. As you exhale, cross your eyes, look at your brows. Exhale, stick your tongue out and make the inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. 2 more. Inhale. Exhale. Try to keep those shoulders out of it. Inhale. Last one. Exhale. Pausing here for a moment. Just noticing how that breath feels to you. How does it feel through the face and neck area? It's a great breath to release stress. If you have a chance to close an office door or to go someplace quietly, to relieve a little bit of that stress of your day. The next breath we're going to do, the last breath we're going to do that I'll leave you with, is called the breath of joy. And often this is done standing. We're going to do it seated because this is really geared towards you being at your office, but feel free if it makes sense for you to stand up. You want to stand up. If you are standing, you've got inner edges of the feet parallel to each other, and we're really solidly standing without locked knees. Pardon me, lion's breath cleared out all that throat chakra. So it almost looks like we're conductors in the breath of joy. And it's a 3-part inhale, and it's 3 levels of inhaling. The arm movement looks like this. And careful again if you're seated with your arm rests. You're going to inhale to the front. You continue to inhale as your arms reach out. You continue that last part of your inhale as they reach up. And then it is a very big exhale to round forward, almost like our child's pose. So we rise up, fill the lungs 1/3. 2/3 as hands reach out, fully inflating lungs as arms reach up, and we exhale to round forward. Here we go. Join me when you're ready. We're going to inhale. 2 more. 1 more. We rise up and we pause here for a moment. Now, typically we could do that breath up to 10 repetitions. I wouldn't do much more than that because it can get a little hyperventilating. So it might be that our 4 breaths didn't inspire as much energy as we would like, but 10 breaths definitely will. The breath of joy, conducting. And if it's hard to remember, you're pointing forward, you're opening your arms out to the crowd, and then you're lifting your hands up. I always think I'm at a rock concert, and then you take a bow. The idea of forward, out, up, and down. Energizing breath. Lion's face followed by breath of joy. Nice way to release tension, to regain some prana, to really nurture yourself with that prana, and to get back into that space of re-energized for your day. We're going to end there today. We walked through some release. We walked through some calming. We walked through some refilling. As I mentioned, Lindsay has all of my information. If you have questions, concerns, please reach out. If you had interesting experiences, please reach out. I'm always happy. I always think of this as an ongoing conversation and happy to answer any questions you might have. Lastly, thank you. Let me get a little emotional. I know you guys are on the front lines. It has been a really, really hard 2 years. And from all of us who have children in the system, who have grown children, who have mental health workers, my daughter, thank you. Thank you for all that you're doing. May you be well, may you be safe, and may you foster loving compassion.